And to make a bechamel, you have to start with some butter. And here we have 4 tablespoons of butter. And then, after the butter is melted, you want to add 4 tablespoons of flour and make a paste. And then when the paste is smooth, you want to add about 2½ cups of milk. And then you stir like the dickens until this thing is thickened. And it has to be thick enough to coat the back of a spoon, you see, just like that. And then, what I do, I'm going to turn this off now because I'll be using that later on. I want to give that a little flavoring, so a little bit of fresh nutmeg goes in. And that basically is my cream sauce. And now to keep that from forming a skin on top of the sauce, I put a piece of buttered wax paper over the top. And that's the sauce, and that can just sit there until we need it later on. Now for the cannelloni, which means tube or pipe in Italian, you want to start out with 2 large eggs. And then you just want to whisk those up until they're smooth. And I'm doing this in a food processor for you today, but many times I've done it in a fontana by hand. And then after the eggs are mixed up, you want to add, a little bit of olive oil. And here I'm using extra virgin, so a good tablespoon. And then a little bit of salt. And now some flour. And here I have about 1½ cups of unbleached flour. I'm going to put most of that in and see just how much the eggs will absorb, because I may not need that all. You want to start to form a ball of dough, and I can tell already, because of making so much of this in the past, that I need more flour. So let me see what we've got. All right, that looks good. I'm going to take that blade out of there and gather up all the rest of this dough. So now, once you have your dough, well, then you want to knead that for a few minutes. So take it over and put a little flour on a board. And really, the whole point of this is to stretch and relax the gluten that is in the dough. And you'll only know by making this dough whether or not you have the right consistency. So I want a dough that I can move on the counter. And then after you've kneaded it for, about 5 minutes, I would say, then you want to just set it aside and let it rest on a floured surface underneath something, a bowl or something to keep it from drying out. This is about 12 ounces of mushrooms that I've just chopped up. These are button mushrooms, just generic mushrooms. So in they go, and I just want to move those around a little bit because what I want to have happen here is cook the mushrooms down. I want to cut up the porcini. So I'm going to dice these up because this is going to give, as I said before, a very woodsy flavor to this filling. And if you didn't have this, well, you could use some other type of mushroom. You could use portobello mushrooms. You could use shiitake mushrooms. You could use all button mushrooms if you needed to. So there are my porcini, and I'm going to put those in now and let those cook together and give that a little bit of coarse black pepper and some salt. And later on, we'll be adding this mushroom mixture to some ricotta cheese. So now what you want to do is roll this out on a clean surface, first of all. I don't want to get porcini juice on this. And now you want to cut the dough in half. Let me just wipe my knife off. Cut that in half and then cut it in quarters. Work with small pieces at a time and keep the pieces that you're not using covered and off to the side. Then get out some more flour and put it on a board. And now you want to flatten down this dough with a rolling pin or un mattarello. So now I want to thin this down. So I start on 2, and most pasta machines have settings that go up to 7 or 8, and the higher the number, the thinner the dough. So now we want these mushrooms to cool down somewhat. So I don't want to add this right away to my cheese, and I wish you could smell this. It smells just like the forest because of those porcinis. Okay, now that's for later. We're going to let that cool down. Now back to the pasta. Now the next thing you need to do is cut that up into your sheets, and either you can wing it just by eyeballing it, or you can make yourself a little template like this, you see. and then just cut around the pasta and go down and make very even sheets. So let's see if we're ready here. I've salted the water, and yes, it is boiling, and now I can put them in. And the thing about fresh pasta like this is that it cooks in absolutely no time. And this is going to bake again in the oven, so we don't want to overcook it. So now, while that's cooking, and it's not going to take very long, we're going to put that filling together. And for that, we want to have ricotta cheese. And now ricotta is a fresh cheese made from either cow's milk, or in Sicily, it's from sheep's milk. And today we're doing this northern style, so I'm using some Asiago cheese, and this is a cow's milk cheese, mushrooms. Now, the secret to this filling, to making a successful filling, is that you've made a filling that is fairly dry, because if this is too wet, well then all of this is going to kind of seep out of the sides of your pasta. All right, they're ready to take out. I told you this was fast. Now to do it, you want to scoop down. This is a great little gadget to have. This is my Italian scooper that I found in Italy. You don't want to tear these sheets. And of course, if you've cooked this correctly, the sheets aren't going to tear. So get the water off, and then so you can handle this immediately, you want to dump this into some cold water. And you could put ice cubes in it to get it cooled down quickly. So now let me clean up the decks here and show you what we do next. So once it's in the water like that, well then, get yourself a towel, a clean towel, because you want to kind of dry these off now. So there's mine. I'm going to take those sheets out, and they should come out and hold together very nicely. You want to start with some cheese and some prosciutto, and here we have Swiss cheese. But whatever you're using, if it's Swiss or Fontina, make sure that the slices are thinly sliced, so it makes it easier for you to roll. And then here we have prosciutto crudo, or the raw cured ham that we find in Parma. Now I'm going to put a slice on like that, and then we want that filling, and there's my filling all ready to go. You want to take a little bit of that and spread it. You see? And move that out of the way so you can see. Spread it right over the top. This is absolutely wonderful, and you see how dry this filling is. And then, starting at the end closest to you, start rolling that up. You see? And this is where the name, the cannelloni, comes from. So now, speaking of sauce, ours is ready to go. What you want to do now is take that wonderful sauce and spread it right over the top. Now your oven is on at 350 degrees, or 375 actually. These cook at a little higher temperature. You want to bake these, about 25 or 30 minutes. A little bit of butter over the top. I told you this was very, very rich and very northern Italian. We're using butter and the cream sauce. It's very classic for northern Italian cooking. And then more Asiago cheese goes right over the top. You see? Just like that. Now that is ready for the oven. So remember, your oven is on, and in it goes.